Okay, dear. This is a really interesting one. Ken McCarthy very kindly, with his great review in your book, made an actual point of saying that you're a bit of a rare breed in that you have a different sort of pricing and costing structure. Tell us a little bit about that first, and then we can talk about what questions should be asked when a potential expert, a consultant, a manager is being looked for. What do you do? How do you charge?
Right. This is another really good question. So if I go back to the early days of this, when I got my first client, the lady in real estate in Houston, and I had to figure out how much to ask her to pay me, because I hadn't got a clue. It was the first time of asking somebody to pay me for my services, and then how to take the money off her. And I had to open my PayPal account and create a buy now button and put it on my web page and tell her, pay me $100 and I'm yours for a month. And she did, and that was how it went. So I started off in the fixed monthly fee way of doing this, as lots of people do. And there are pros and cons with all these different approaches. Over the years, I obviously got better at what I was doing, got more experience, worked with more clients, and just kept putting my price up. So I was charging a monthly fee, I kept putting the price up, and I was working with all manner of clients that you could imagine, mostly lead gen, really. And I only started getting more into the e-commerce side of things more recently, but I've got some e-commerce clients that I've had for some years, so they were part of my mix. And everybody was just paying a fixed monthly amount, which is okay. But there's a lot of drawbacks with that. I mean, over time I lost clients. I had people go away because I couldn't prove to them that the money they were paying me for the fixed fee monthly was bringing back more than it cost them. And they had to take into account their AdWords costs as well. So if you're spending $400 on AdWords clicks and $600 on me, that's $1,000. Well, what do you get back in exchange for that? And this is the crucial thing. So when I could not prove my value to my client because they couldn't see the dollars in, they could see the dollars out, but they couldn't see the dollars in, then I was potentially at risk. I was vulnerable every time to the client saying, well, I can't justify what I'm spending here because I can't see the dollars in.
Yeah,
I can't see
sure.
what's coming back. So, and also, and this is what agencies and managers do a lot as well, is you have to do all kinds of what I've come to think of really is quite ridiculous reporting, because if you can't justify your value in terms of dollars in, you've got to prove that you're doing stuff with your time.
Yeah, interesting. I chuckle because one of my last sort of stints working at a golf property before I went into business for myself, there was a brother and sister in charge of the sort of sales and marketing department, and the brother, he wouldn't care if you were just out playing golf all week, you were partying. He just wanted to see at the end of the week, how many sales did you bring in?
Bums on
His
seats.
sister, on the other hand, you
Absolutely.
needed to check in at 9 o'clock. She needed to
Oh,
see you sitting there at the PC. So we do
right.
understand it.
Control freak, yeah.
So what you're saying in effect is that the more of a sort of upfront monthly fee you were paying, the more fiddly reporting you had to do just to
To
quote unquote
justify it,
justify that.
absolutely, yes,
Gotcha.
that's right. You see, so because of that, you end up having to, excuse me, give reports to people about how many bid updates you did, how many ad updates you did, how many negative keywords you put in, how many new keywords you added, what changes you made to the campaigns, new ad groups, all this stuff, and really, it's completely academic and completely unnecessary, because I just want to see that for last month I put 1,000 in and I got 10,000 back,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't care what you did, as long as we can continue to do that and do more of it, hopefully. You see, so there's that part of it. So part of my mantra of the automate, eliminate, delegate thing is, well, don't do stuff that you don't need to do. Eliminate. You don't need to do reports. It took me back to when I was in IT and computers and stuff, and back in the corporate days. For a brief time, I was in a small firm that were going to pay me on a commission basis. I was in a pre-sales situation. I was in a sales consultant situation, which I'd never been in before because I'd always been an engineer, a techie, fixing stuff and whatnot. So in this pre-sales role, they were going to pay me on commission, and my boss said to me at the beginning, look, I want to pay you more, right? Ask me for more money in commission and I'll happily give it to you, right? Because you've earned it, right? So I was on a commission-based approach like that in a sales capacity, which I'd never done before. And that came back to me when I started thinking about, well, okay, how do I prove my value to people when I'm managing their AdWords accounts? And I knew that in many cases it was often very difficult for particularly lead gen people, particularly lead gen who are self-fulfilling lead gen, as I call it, which is they close the leads themselves and sell their services and get paid and whatnot. Very difficult for them to know that this lead was worth spending $20 on, or $50, or $100, or $1,000, or whatever, And if you look at some industries, like the legal trade, where you've got hugely expensive keywords like mesothelioma and whatnot, that are going for hundreds of dollars a click, right?
Wow.
These guys really need to know their numbers.
Yeah.
Thing is, they do.
Excuse
right?
me.
They've worked it out. They know it's worth spending $100 on a mesothelioma click, because out of 100 mesothelioma clicks at $100, which is 10 grand in your ad spend, they know they get one client out of that who's worth 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever it is, because the payoff is massive, right? Now, not everybody's in that situation that they know the value of the lead. When I was running the work from home lead gen guy, he was a lead broker. He sold the leads, so we knew the value of the lead.
Yeah.
So we knew that if he sold it for 10, we've got to bring it in for significantly less than that. And we worked out an approach where he would pay me on a lead commission basis. So, and the initial version of it was that as long as I brought in his leads for under $1.50, he would pay me the volume of the leads I got under that amount. So if I brought them in at $1 or £1, he would give me the difference for each one.
Yeah, I understand.
So if I brought 100 in, he would pay me 100 times the difference between 150, which was his max, and what I brought them in underneath that, and that worked out fine. And we just went after everything we could get. Now, there's a drawback to that approach as well, which is that the more money I want to make, the bigger the difference between what I between his max and what I bring them in at. Now, if I get greedy and want more commission per lead, then I'm going to bid less and spend less, which means my ad positions go down, which means my visibility goes down, which means my conversion rate, everything goes down. So that's not a good way of doing it. So it took me years to figure out that the fixed fee approach doesn't represent value. Some people will pay much more for me than others, but I do the same work. I'm more valuable to their organization. They've got better resources to make more money out of what I cost and what I do. So I need to be with those people who are absolutely certain of the value that I represent to them. So, go on.
So let me throw something out at you then, and you know what I'm like with my analogies here, okay? So you, however, are at a stage where working on a commission only, or for the right clients, and let me just finish this through here, you're selling Aston Martins, you're selling Ferraris, so you know that there's something sort of, technically speaking, because, these sales guys, particularly the pure sales guys, they're all over commission like a rash. But the thing is, they're not selling beat up Fords or old Mazdas that are going to be leaking oil. What do you do, dear, to ensure that you're only selling Ferraris or Aston?
Very good. I always like the car analogy because it is so, you can use a car analogy in so many situations. You know, I can tell you that running an AdWords campaign is a bit like getting in a car and driving, and the gas tank is your budget, and your accelerator is your rate of delivery, and you've got to have a goal, a destination in mind, which is, well, what are you running the campaign for in the first place? I'm all over that car analogy, believe me, it's really good.
Super.
So that's a good conversation for another day. But so yes, how do I sell the Ferraris? Well, that means I've got to be very selective of the clients that I work with. So just going back to the lead gen side of things, so I really struggled with the value of the leads with lots of organizations, because they just don't know what it is. And sometimes the sales cycle can be weeks, months, quarters, years, you know, and you just can't track that stuff in AdWords. It takes too long, and cookies expire and whatnot. So when I started working with e-commerce clients, on the other hand, we could see their sales, so we knew what we were selling, and we knew how much it was costing us, and we could really effectively manage that to a CPA, cost per acquisition basis. So we could say, we don't want to spend any more than $20 a sale. And given that knowledge, that data, you can manage everything, all the keywords, all the ad groups, all the campaigns, everything around that data. You know, don't spend more on average than $20 a sale. End of story. So that data makes that proposition, you know, hugely easier. You can do the same thing with lead gen too, as long as you know what your CPA, what your maximum cost per acquisition, cost per lead should be. Okay. And I absolutely insist that anybody and everybody who works with me absolutely knows this kind of data, CPA data, cost per acquisition, cost per sale, cost per lead. If you know that, you can manage things around that number. You just have to be absolutely sure that that's that's the right number. Yeah, it's the right metric.
And what is happening during this period of time when you're asking these questions? Are you on the phone with them? Do you send them a document? Are you charging them to get this information? How do you, this whole sort of evaluation period, what modality are you using?
How does that all work? Right, okay, so before I get to that, the final missing piece of the puzzle behind all this was to understand not only what it cost to sell something, but what you got paid in return. Now, this is only about a year and a quarter or so old, because it was a new metric and a new method of tracking that Google introduced that I initially missed for some months. And when I discovered it, I'm like, holy cow, here's something really important that I need to know about that I somehow missed. And when I discovered that a bit by accident, what it is a thing which, technically speaking, Google call dynamic conversion tracking, which is to say, you know you got a sale because somebody hit a thank you page. Also, the shopping cart that you check out of gives that sales value, that revenue value, back to the AdWords campaign. So the AdWords campaign now knows that it spent this, but it was paid this, right? So if you spend 1 and you get 10 back, divide the 1 by the other, which is what's called return on ad spend. You spend 1, you get 10. That's a ratio of 10. And that means that you've got 10 back for every 1 that you put in. And that's actual real revenue that's tracked from your cart. There's no arguing with that. That's data, that's sales data. So now you simply want to drive every keyword and every ad in your inventory to that metric, to that number. Sell everything we can sell and make, 5, 10, whatever it is, back again. Right? So with that data, I could now say, right, not only can I charge people on the volume of sales we make, because what I did initially was with merchants was I said, pay me $3.50 a sale, and if last month I get you 700, you pay me 700 times 350. If this month I get you 500, and you do the math, and that's the commission. And that works pretty well, but it still doesn't solve that missing final piece of, well, what's the return on ad spend? What did we make back? We spent 100 grand last month. Did we get $1 million back? If we did, great. That's 10 to 1 return. Brilliant. We'll just keep spending 100 grand a month, and just go after it as much as. So when I am now, so my commission charge now is based on the actual value, sales value, the revenue value. So if somebody makes, sells 100 grams worth of products, I charge them an agreed amount of commission on that number. So X percent of that number. And so now I am incentivized, I am motivated to keep pushing that number up, because the more they sell, the more they earn, the more they pay me.
Yeah.
So it's not just volume of sales, it's value of sales.
Gotcha.
Because I realized a long time ago, really, that there's three pieces to this whole puzzle, which is why I wrote the book, which is why I called it what it is, which is clicks, customers, cash flow. There's three parts to this. It's not just the clicks that you get from the campaigns. You've got to convert them into customers. You've got to sell stuff. So I say, well, we target the right clicks to get you the visitors, so buy the right clicks is the crucial first piece of it. But then, and Perry Marshall phrases it, traffic, conversion, and economics, and that's absolutely true. I phrase it slightly differently. Clicks, we buy the right click. Customers, so conversions. Well, I say clicks are for show, but conversions are for dough.
Yeah.
We've got to convert the visitor into a paying customer. We've got to get money back in from what we spent. Thing is, with the cash flow piece of it, it's got to be profitable. The return on ad spend has to be positive. So that's the whole puzzle solved of being paid on a commission basis and being paid on a commission of sales revenue basis, which means I'm in it to make as much money out of your website as I can. So it's not just the campaigns, it's how your pages convert. Can I come up with ideas for new ways to do your pages? Can we come up with new products that we want to put a product category page together for and test and all of that? So I'm the strategic partner with the e-commerce merchant to make their website get as many sales conversions at the highest value that it can get. And that takes you into whole, new ways of working with the merchants, that straightforward agencies that are just in it for the monthly fee, just for the traffic, they're not considering any of that stuff.
Okay, so this is a good place for us to sort of call this one, and then the next one I'm going to throw it around a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you and ask you what your advice would be for somebody just sort of not necessarily just coming in, but clearly who hasn't maybe got the ability to attract the bigger, potentially profitable clients,
Right.
how they would think their way around a proposal to somebody on what to charge.
Yeah, okay, great.
All right, DL, good on you. We'll speak again.
Okay.